In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Half a day and welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto, and I'd like to welcome our guests for this segment. We have the chairperson of the Guam Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Christine Boleto, who is the CFO of Docomo Pacific. We've also got Mr. Frank Campillo, who is the plan administrator of Calvo Select Care, and Mr. Ernie Galito, who is the marketing and communications manager for Atkins Kroll, a distinguished panel that we've invited here because the Guam Chamber of Commerce has put together a task force or committee to come up with a white paper on proposed economic diversification initiatives for Guam. As everyone knows, we're facing a severe economic downturn because of this pandemic, and we'd like to talk more about what the Chamber has planned in terms of recommendations to revitalize or help the economy through this pandemic. And I want to start with you, Christine. Tell us a little bit more about the committee and its purpose.
Thank you, Nestor, and Hafaday. So basically, as you mentioned, the Chamber, I think, is on the forefront of hearing from businesses and understanding the impact that the pandemic has had on their sustainability. We're seeing businesses close. Obviously with the latest information and the delay in opening up tourism, that's very concerning for a great many of our businesses out there. Even as tourism is targeted to open, we all know that that's not going to come to fruition. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID numbers, and it's going to take a while to rebuild our market and therefore rebuild that sector of our economy. And so the Chamber pulled together what we call the think tank, which is, some business members, some Chamber members that are experts, if you will, in their field and have a lot of great ideas on how we can look at bringing about industries that are not necessarily new. Some of these ideas have been around, but have not really been pursued. But I think now more than ever, we need to explore developing these other industries so that we can diversify our economy. And so some of the ideas that we've talked about is captive insurance, being an alternative dispute resolution center. We've talked about, the trust laws. We've talked about, things like inviting businesses that are based in Hong Kong that may be leery of the instability that has been developing there, and seeing if they would like to perhaps do some investments here or house their money here. We've been looking at the pharmaceutical legislation that would provide tax breaks to American companies that are wanting to bring manufacturing back to the United States, as most of it is based in China right now. So, we brought everybody together, and, we had Frank and Ernie as part of this group. Frank was recently elected chair of this group, which he happily took on with great enthusiasm. And so we're really excited because, I think, it's still in our minds, it's a form of tourism, if you will, but it's developing the business tourism industry. And, I've had a few people kind of contact me after we released that white paper saying, well, we don't want to be like Hong Kong with the high rises, or we don't want to have manufacturing companies here. And I advise them, it's like, we don't necessarily need to have those things. We just want their money. But we have to recognize that building this business tourism industry has the ripple effect like it does with the leisure tourism market, and that those coming here to check on their money, to have their board meetings, to go through an alternative resolution case, are staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, and spending their money in our retail establishments. And in some cases, they'll bring their family. And so, we're really looking at these areas as a potential way, again, to diversify the economy.
Yeah, I think you guys made a wise choice in getting Campillo to head this committee. Frank, tell me a little bit about why Guam. What are the things about Guam that would attract outside investors to establish their businesses here? What are some of the unique aspects, or what are some of the advantages of them coming here?
Well, if I may track back a little bit on the genesis of the committee. Again, tourism will continue being our lifeline, but while the individuals that are working on tourism are able to put together the plans to get tourism back, the idea of the chamber is let's look at other industries. And again, we don't have the exclusivity on ideas. That's something that we want to say. We want to, as you was said earlier, there are people calling already saying, well, we don't want this, we don't want that. We want people actually to come up with ideas. We look at what kind of internal economic activities we can do and what kind of external economic activities we can do to promote economic activity on the island. It's going to take a little long for tourism, so it's to recreate economic activity. Now, why Guam is seen as a place where people from Asia can invest? Well, we are secure. We have laws that are the United States laws. We have court systems that has been proven. We have the U.S. court system, and we have a very good local court system. And we are a U.S. territory, and we live by laws and regulations that are clear. And in fact, some of the things that we were trying to accomplish through this paper is to get the government of Guam to put clear and more and possibly the regulations, slim down the regulations so we can attract economies from outside of Guam. We talk about bringing some companies from Hong Kong, and it's not only bringing companies, it's possibly bringing that data warehousing of the data that they currently have as a secondary source for them to have data here on Guam. Well, that's not going to create tall buildings or a lot of people, but it's going to create other sources of economy for Guam. Yeah. So the idea is to motivate economic activity, whether internally or externally. And again, the chamber does not have the exclusivity on ideas. We're asking, this is only to motivate people to think, motivate people, but it's not only to come up with ideas. Our group will come up with ideas, will identify and address any barriers that those ideas may have. We'll also provide a suggested plan for the implementation of the plan of the ideas or the industries, and would also provide a demonstration of the economic benefit to the island. So each one of those solutions or potential alternative industries will have a potential benefit for the island as an economy.
Yeah. So Ernie, how do we get the word out about what Frank just said about the advantages of coming here? How does the chamber propose that we get that word out to potential investors?
Well, first of all, we got to communicate and identify the market segment. Of course, in the case of Hong Kong, Christine had mentioned that maybe small companies, U.S.-based companies, as well as home-based Hong Kong companies, they may want to relocate because right now with the political climate, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt as far as some of the laws that they have recently passed, as well as the U.S. Treatment of doing business in Hong Kong. So in order to communicate that messaging to the right audience, we want to make sure that Guam has got its own house in order. So we want to make sure that we work together with GITA and the government of Guam to make sure that we can have a fast-track way of opening an entity on Guam and making sure that everything is clear and the target's not moving, as well as it can't be interpreted so that different case studies may go before public hearing, for example. We want to make sure that it's easy and smooth as possible so we can have a test case, and that will be a good testimonial for people to want to invest here in Guam, as well as potentially move their domicile here on Guam.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
So let me just ask you, let me just throw this question out, and whoever wants to answer it can answer it. But what can the government do to help? What can it provide in terms of, say, incentives or regulatory reform? And do we really need to get the buy-in of our political leaderships on both sides of the aisle in order for us to get this to work?
I think we absolutely do. And as Ernie mentioned, we've already had some discussions with GVB and GITA leadership to ask for their support in particularly the captive insurance industry, as well as the invitation to some of these Hong Kong businesses. The single thing that we think poses the biggest barrier is the ability of companies to come in and start a business. It's even locally, for anyone that's tried to get a business license, it's an extremely difficult process. Oh, sorry, I lost you for a moment there. It's an extremely difficult process, and we need the government's help to streamline that process and make it easy for people to come here, to get a business license and invest. So that's one of the barriers that we've identified for these industries coming in. In addition to that, like you mentioned, we need the buy-in from both the legislative and administrative branch to help develop these industries. I know there's a lot of concern about tax breaks that are given, but one of the things that I've pointed out, particularly in captive insurance, is that we get no business from these industries currently. So you're not garnering any taxes off them. Meanwhile, they're domiciling in FSM and Hawaii, and those folks are benefiting from, not necessarily tax collections, but the residual business that comes from, these foreign companies going in and spending their money there, and again, having people come there and check on their business activities and so forth. So we've got to look beyond the immediate collection of taxes, and help foster those businesses developing so that long-term we're collecting taxes and we're benefiting from that business.
Yeah, Frank, you mentioned earlier, we're not looking to replace tourism as one of our main industries, but we're not actually looking for a single replacement for anything. We're looking for multiple industries to come in. Is that correct?
And that is correct. And again, the ideas are not exclusive to us. We're saying let's explore, crises create opportunities. And actually, if we go back in history, some of the main initiatives that have come through our history came out of crises. I was reading recently, for instance, that Florence and the era of Renaissance came out of that pandemic that also happened during those early 1300s in Europe. And people become creative. The number of things that humans have done, for instance, just the fact that Zoom was a company that was hardly known by the end of December, and now in a matter of 6 months have become a verb for everybody. Let's Zoom today. Those are the type of ideas that we're looking for. And we're not replacing anything, but we're trying to promote initiatives and ideas and get the island to think as to how our economy can also use ideas that can be implementable. And timelines of this white paper will put timelines for implementation. And back to the government question that you had, it is crucial that all of these ideas get government support. We cannot work without government. And this is something that we are partners. In fact, the meeting that we had with GITA and GBB, we were very happy that they embraced this type of initiatives, and we are going to embrace the initiatives that the GBB has for bringing tourism back, as well as they're going to embrace some of the initiatives that we're going to have so we can get our economy back in course.
Yeah, you mentioned, the history also. I wanted to use Singapore as an example. It's a little bit bigger than Guam. Guam's about 3/4 the size. Of course, they have much larger population, but they, out of nothing, they had very little in terms of natural resources and land resources, but they got together, the government under Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of that nation, created an economy that is among the biggest, the best in the world. And I think in reading about that, one of the industries that they established was creating Singapore as a financial center, a shipping hub, an electronics and technical center. So are those something specifically that Guam can do? And anybody jump in who might want to respond to that? Can we use Singapore, in other words, as sort of a model?
I think any of the nearby countries that have become successful can be used as a model. Look at South Korea. South Korea was also the second poorest economy after World War II and after the Korean War, and they have become one of the largest economies in the world. So yes, those are good models, but I think we have the American flag. We are America in Asia, and that alone is something that we've been trying to sell for a long time. The chamber right now is trying to get the AmChams to basically support us and possibly look at Guam as a good location for the headquarters of AmCham. And there are many ideas. We talk about pharmaceuticals, for instance, with the new laws and the new changes that may come as a result of the new emergency that the United States has seen, that many of our pharmaceuticals are being manufactured abroad. And in times of crises, we may need manufacturing of those pharmaceuticals in the United States. Well, we can also get some of those pharmaceutical companies that are foreign to possibly become domestic by using Guam as the domestic place to have their headquarters or a subsidiary and do light manufacturing in here that may qualify as manufacturing in the United States.
With foreign investment, Ernie, do you think we'll need to engage the federal government, the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security in those sorts of situations?
Well, there's already some programs that we can probably take advantage of. Nobody talks about the EB-5 program, which is an initiative that invites immigrant investment in the U.S. up to $1 million if they provide, say, for example, 10 jobs in projects that Guam may qualify because we're considered rural. We're not an urban area. And it used to be that actually it is still one of the tenets of the EB-5 program is that the unemployment rate has to be 150% higher than the national rate. Well, Guam has got 36,000 applicants for stimulus packages, and our unemployment rate's got to be one of the highest now since tourism has shut down half the economy. So the EB-5 program is one way to do it, even though that's a long stretch. But another way that we can take a look at Guam's economy to get going is that apply some self-help. There is approximately $500 million of shovel-ready projects that's in DPW now. If there's a way that we can provide some additional resources, such as project management, so we can get some of those projects off the ground and into reality. And also, there's a big backlog of some projects that may be at Guam Land Use Commission. If there's a way that we can provide resources where they can administer some of those projects from plans to actually work permits and job permits and things of that nature, then the government of Guam can surely reap the benefits of this type of economic activity. And with our fingers and toes crossed, hopefully that the National Defense Act will have the amendment which will provide additional labor for H-2 workers to provide labor force for projects outside the fence, outside the military projects. So there's a lot of things that I think Guam can do internally, provided we have the resources in order to execute a lot of the projects we have already on paper or ready to be permitted out.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
I want to spend the remaining minutes that we have to actually dig a little bit deeper into the weeds. You mentioned as one of the potential industries, I think Frank and Christine both mentioned pharmaceuticals. What other industries specifically are we looking at? And can you explain what we need to do to bring that to Guam? And let me start with you, Christine.
Well, one of the things that I've been heavily, I guess, in collaboration with Gita on is captive insurance. We've had the captive insurance law on the books, I believe, since 1996, but we've never really got that industry off the ground. Meanwhile, the FSM, Pohnpei in particular, took our law and established it in their country, and it is doing extremely well. And so I think that's one of those potentials. You know, I did a comparison and shared that with Gita as to the three different sectors, Guam, FSM, and Hawaii, and showed that because of the cost of doing business here and the difficulty in getting a captive off the ground, you know, there would be no company that would be interested in putting their captive insurance business here. And so that's something that, you know, through the collaboration and communication with Gita, they just recently passed a board resolution addressing those disparities and those concerns. And, you know, we have their commitment to try to get this off the ground. And, you know, one of the things that I know folks are concerned about that we've talked about is captives are not, we're not pushing that to erode the local tax base. We're not pushing it to take away business away from our local insurance companies. Really, the intent is to invite foreign companies to place their domicile here so that we're able to benefit again from the residual business from them putting the captives here. And you know, these are successful programs that I believe it's the #2 industry in Pohnpei that's supporting their economy. And then Hawaii got voted last year the #1 domicile state in the country. So clearly, you know, there's other states that have developed it. There's other countries that have developed it, and the potential is for us to be able to what you call that, get this industry off the ground here, especially since we're so close to Asia. I mean, it makes sense for Asian countries to come here, domicile, and for us to take advantage of them wanting to have you know, their captive insurance company here and benefit from the tax breaks that they're going to get. And again, those tax breaks are not a detriment to the government of Guam because we don't have their tax business or their tax collections right now coming into our coffers.
Okay, Frank, we got captive insurance, we got pharmaceuticals. What else can we bring to Guam?
Oh, we're going also a little bit outside of our normal thinking. For instance, satellite launching. I don't know if you know that about 5 years ago, the country of Malaysia launched a satellite from the Marshall Islands, but they actually use Guam as the center of communications, like the control center for that. Virgin has considered Guam as one of the potential launching for their space exploration. We got just yesterday, China launched a probe to Mars. The United States also sent one. And it appears that space exploration is something that is occurring more regularly. More satellites are going to be launched. Well, Guam can also be sold as a place to be launching satellites and space exploration because of the orbit that we have is a perfect orbit apparently. So ideas like that, and that brings a lot of high-end quality jobs, high-end paying jobs to the island. So those type of ideas are the ones that we're contemplating. And something that Ernie mentioned, it's not only about ideas of outside economy coming in, but also our internal economy. How can we stimulate? We have, as Ernie mentioned, over $500 billion worth of potential jobs that are ready to be approved, to put out. Yes, this is a time that we may not have H2 workers, but this is a time where we also have a lot of displaced workers in continental US that maybe now they may consider coming to Guam and do some work. So it may be a little more expensive, but at least those activities will start to produce additional income to the island because of the effect of the expenditures into the entire island by spending over $500 million of construction works. So the effect of those expenditures will be about twice as much, and they are ready. We just need to get the government to approve them. We need to get the permits to be out and the companies to put them out. And that.
And Ernie, let me pose this to you since you were former deputy over at GVB, but one of the things that has been proposed over the last few years is the medicinal marijuana industry as a way to also attract tourists from those countries, such as Japan, that where it's currently outlawed. What do you think about the prospects of medicinal marijuana as a way of also, once the tourism industry gets going again, as a way, a marketing tool to bring more tourists here?
Well, it's going to be a segment that will attract, obviously some people that are advocates of cannabis use and things like that. But we're just kind of worried about when they go back to their home country, there's going to be maybe some residual that may check through their luggage and things like that. So maybe some visitors may want to try to do it because it's going to be something new and different. But we're just concerned about if there's any repercussions of, say, for example, they get any confiscations at their home airport, that might cast a bad pallor on the shadow of Guam. But, it's something that people are going to try. There's a lot of states in the U.S. that got it, like Las Vegas, that are tourist areas, and Colorado reaps a lot of benefit from tourism tax dollars from people using the cannabis industry. So it's viable. We'd rather go with a greater volume of segment tourists, but we think that any segment will help continue to improve Guam's reputation.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Okay, we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to give each of you about 60 seconds to tell our audience why we should continue to be optimistic, even in the face of all these challenges that the pandemic has brought on. So, Christina, is the economy still something to look forward to? Somewhere there's a blue horizon?
I definitely think so. I think if there's one thing that our people and our community have proven is we're a resilient bunch. It's storms, earthquakes, whatever has come our way. We've gone through a previous pandemic with SARS, and we've always managed to bounce back and come back stronger. And I have no doubt that we'll continue to do that. And I think it's important, and I just want to kind of put it out there, because sometimes when the community members hear about the chamber focusing on businesses, they think, again, it's just the businesses that are trying to just line their pockets and it's all about them. But, a lot of business owners never lose sight of the fact that we employ people, and it's about our employees and our people, getting them working. And that's what helps to build the economy, not just that there's a business there, but that there's people that work there that are being supported by that business. So we definitely look forward to us recovering from this. And again, I have no doubt that we will do so.
Frank, your message of optimism?
Well, that's the only last thing that we should lose, optimism. And again, like as I said earlier, crises have created opportunities, whether the financial crisis, whether previous pandemics. And I think this is going to create an opportunity again. And the island is poised. I think we're doing well with controlling COVID. And I think we got to think about reopening industries that are going to help the community. But yeah, we should be very optimistic about the future, despite the current challenges.
And Ernie, you got about 30 seconds for the final word here.
For 1,000 years, Guam's advantage has always been its proximity and its location. So during the Spanish galleon days, to the German whaling days, to landing of 12 cable data points on Guam, Guam's proximity, and of course its advantages for tourism, we're always going to be at the advantage. So Guam has got a bright horizon. We just need to focus and put our minds to it and make it work.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel so much better having talked to you guys today. Christine Valletto, Frank Campillo, and Ernie Galito from the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us.
For the session.
Thank you, Nestor.
And thank you for joining us, to everybody out there. I'm Nestor Licanto, in Full Zoom. We'll see you next time.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.